High school teachers, what is the one thing that you want your students to know that you'd never tell them in person? Mr. Henderson had been teaching history for almost 20 years, and every kid thought he was the grumpiest teacher alive. He never smiled, never cracked jokes, and his essays were so hard that half the class would fail. Most students figured he just hated teenagers and counted down the days until retirement. What they didn't know was that every single night after school, while the janitors cleaned the hallways, Mr. Henderson stayed behind in his empty classroom and wrote in this thick brown leather journal. It wasn't lesson plans or grade books. Every page was covered with stories about his students. He wrote about how Kevin always shared his lunch with the new kid who forgot his money, how Ashley never spoke up in class because she had a stutter that made her face turn red, how Miguel stayed after school every day to help stack chairs, not for extra credit, but because his mom worked late and he had nowhere else to go. Mr. Henderson noticed everything. The way Jacob's eyes lit up when they talked about World War II, even though he pretended not to care. How Rachel doodled intricate patterns in her notebook margins that showed she was actually brilliant. How Danny made jokes to hide the fact that his dad had been deployed for 8 months. He documented their struggles, their tiny victories, the moments when they thought nobody was watching. Things like how Emma always sat alone at lunch reading fantasy novels, or how Alex wore the same 3 shirts in rotation but never missed a day of school. One Thursday afternoon, a kid named Caleb was copying notes from the board when he noticed the journal sitting open on Mr. Henderson's desk. Caleb was one of those students everyone thought was lazy and rude. He skipped classes, turned in homework late, and acted like he didn't care about anything. Curiosity got the better of him, and he flipped through a few pages. He expected to find harsh comments about stupid kids and how much the teacher hated his job. Instead, he found his own name written in careful handwriting. Caleb acts like school doesn't matter, but I see how he watches everything. He draws these amazing sketches in his notebook margins when he thinks I'm not looking. His mind works differently than other kids, and that's not a bad thing. I just hope he figures out how smart he really is before the world convinces him he's not. Caleb stared at the page, reading it 3 times. Nobody had ever called him smart before. His other teachers treated him like a problem to solve. His parents constantly asked why he couldn't be more like his honor roll sister. The next morning, Caleb showed up early to class for the first time all year. When Mr. Henderson walked in with his usual scowl, Caleb cleared his throat. "Do you really think I'm smart?" he asked quietly. Mr. Henderson looked up from his coffee, studied Caleb's face for a moment, then went back to organizing his papers. "I wouldn't write it down if I didn't mean it," he said in his typical gruff voice. Word spread fast. By lunch, half the class knew about the journal. Students started paying attention to Mr. Henderson differently. They noticed how he always had tissues ready when someone was getting sick, how he kept granola bars in his desk drawer for kids who missed breakfast, how he stayed late to help anyone who asked, even the ones who never seemed to listen. Emma started raising her hand more often. Danny stopped making jokes to deflect serious questions. Rachel showed Mr. Henderson one of her drawings, and he hung it on the bulletin board next to the Constitution. Caleb started turning in assignments on time. Not perfect ones, but genuine effort. He even stayed after class one day to ask about colleges that might accept someone with his grades.